A lot of people think they know what the wealthy do with their money. But here's the thing. What if they're wrong?
Brent, I am so excited about this because our clients have literally spent decades building their wealth and learning financial lessons. And now we get to share all of that information with you.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to dive into what the wealthy actually do with their money, how they got there, and what you can learn on your way to your great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And if you want to share your own financial journey with us, our 2025 Financial Mutant Survey is now live at moneyguide.com/survey. And it's linked in the description below. With that, let's dive right in. All right, Brian, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about sort of at a glance, what does our survey respondent, Abound Wealth client, actually look like? And the best place for us to start around their visual to the world around them is net worth. It's one thing we talk about all the times. And the net worth, as you would suspect, was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Now, just for those who are brand new to our content, net worth is it's comparing and contrasting what you own. Mm-hmm. That's your assets. What you owe, that's your liabilities. And if you combine those to know what you net have, that is your net worth. And that's what we wanted to kind of open up the curtains. We surveyed thousands of our clients, and here's what they came back with, is that the median net worth, $2.2 million.
Yeah, I think it's wild. A lot of people are surprised to see this. Yes, there are some folks that are in that $10 million plus range. And we do have a number of clients that have not yet hit that millionaire status. But the vast majority, the lion's share of our clients, 80% of them are right there in that $1 million to $5 million range. And if you're someone out there thinking, oh, I wish I knew what my net worth was, I wish I knew where I fell out, we have a tool that you can use at learn.moneyguide.com. This is the exact same tool that Brian and I use every single year to track our net worth so that we know where we're at on our journey to financial independence.
Bo, I feel like we came out hot because we're first thing we just roll out is net worth of what's going on with our survey clients. Now we're going to talk about even something that is definitely taboo to talk about at dinner parties. What's their incomes?
Yeah, this is a wild one because, and look, income is important, but it's not everything. And I want that to be clear. But as we surveyed our clients, the data was pretty interesting. If you look at all the client responses, the median household income for our clients was about $250,000. And the average, again, skewed by a handful of outliers, is about $330,000. So certainly higher income earning households, but it's not a majority of folks that are making $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. The vast majority of our clients fell in that income range between like $100,000 to $400,000.
Now, remember, this is of working clients because we have retired over there. That's a small percentage. But look at this, is that there was 12% of our clients who answered the survey made less than $100,000.
I want you to say that again because that's so powerful.
12% of our clients actually make less than $100,000.
So an income can be incredibly useful because it allows you to create margin, but it's not an absolute necessity. So no matter where you are in your financial journey, as you're moving towards financial independence, we have a belief here that financial independence and building wealth is available to all income levels.
I would encourage people, though, if you're one of these, because you're aspirational like Bo and I were at the beginning of our journeys, and you're not making the income you want, do look at this and say, hey, maybe what can I do to increase my shovel size? Because we're not saying it's not important, though, because I think it is quite interesting that our median income is definitely well above what the average American is making.
But when you think about increasing the shovel, one of the ways a lot of our clients did that was through their education. So we asked some questions around education. When you were coming up, did you go to public school? Did you go to private school? What did that look like? And I thought it was kind of interesting how the data came back.
Yeah, you would think, I think probably stereotypical. If we said, what do you think, people? We would say, well, they must go to Ivy League schools.
Harvard
they must
and
be
Stanford
very fancy schools. No, it's just the opposite of that. Is that if you look at, let's first talk about K through 12 education. You know, how did people get their foundational education? 77%. public schools.
So 3 out of 4 went to a public K through 12 school.
Okay, and then you say, okay, how about college? What did they do? What type of, to get their first undergrad, what did they do? 69% went to public colleges.
So 7 out of 10 didn't go to some private university, didn't go to some Ivy League. They went into public college undergraduate studies. Then you have the private attenders. About 11% went to K through 12 and about 21% went to private undergrad. And then there were a number that did some combination or had some sort of research, but the vast majority didn't feel like they had to go pay absolute top dollar for some prestigious education in order to do what they wanted to do vocationally. And we talk about all the time, Brian, that one of the things that's so sad today is that so many graduates come out of school and they are now saddled with this student loan debt that they don't just take through the first year, 2, 3 years. They might even take it through the first couple decades of their working career, and that's a sad statistic.
We actually have a rule that we want to try to keep you safe, and we just stay in the guardrails of, hey, make sure you keep your student loans below what your anticipated first year of salary out of school will be. If you can do that, you have a very good chance that you'll get a return on your investment into your education. You'll actually not be saddled with so much debt that income coming out won't let you vanquish it pretty quickly.
And so we asked our clients, okay, did you follow this? Were you someone who followed the first year financing rule? And it was amazing. So 50% of our respondents said they actually didn't graduate with any student loans. They were either able to make it through or they were able to get scholarships and grants. But 39% of those followed the first year financing rule. Only 11% did not follow the first year financing rule. I'm going to imagine that 11% was probably some of the more specialized fields, the medical professionals or those who got an advanced degree. It was wild that if you look at this in total, 89% of our clients, almost 9 out of 10, recognize that graduating college with tons of student loan debt is a very difficult way to get ahead on your financial journey.
Yeah, and I don't mind sharing because, I have a daughter who's a senior in college this year, so we're kind of closing out this whole college experience. And I was lamenting in one of our content meetings the comparing and contrasting between her scholarship that covered 60% of the cost of her education plus the 529s that we did. She's going to graduate college with the blessing of 0 student loan debt.
It's amazing.
But I was thinking about some of her friends that she grew up with that I know for a fact are coming out of college without these are not like they're not going to be doctors or attorneys, but they're going to come out of school with 6 figures of student loan debt.
Wild.
You think about the compare and contrast of what that financial journey looks like coming out with 6 figures of debt versus 0 debt. That's why I think it's important for somebody, if you are a parent or you are a young person looking at this content, be very deliberate with how you pay and structure your education.
And because if you do graduate with a lot of college loan debt, it's going to affect one of the most powerful tools that you have. We've already talked about, income is important and it is powerful, but it's probably not the most powerful thing when it comes to wealth building. But one of the things that probably is the most powerful is your savings rate. And so we asked our clients, okay, when it comes to saving, when it comes to building towards financial independence, when it comes to exercising that muscle of discipline, in order to create some margin, what does your margin creation look like? And it was amazing and truthfully not incredibly surprising to us that our Financial Mutant Abound Wealth clients, 43% of our clients are saving 25% or greater of their gross income.
Well, and that stat goes even higher because we have 16% are retired.
Are actual retirees.
Retired on this when it comes to savings rate and falling into the stats. So it actually pushes that number over 51% of our working clients. But let's also don't shy away from the fact that those who aren't even saving 25%, there was another 20% that were in that comfortable zone of 20 to 24%. Right. So maybe these were people who followed my lead, is that when you got in your 40s, you took a measurement and said, hey, I'm ahead of the curve. Maybe I can dial this down to 20% or 23%. I still think it's pretty amazing that Financial Mutants actually really exercise that discipline muscle well.
And I think it's because they understand that, man, if I can do this, it can have a huge impact. And people ask us all the time, okay, how did you guys come up with 25%? Why is that the thing that you hang your hat on? And the reason is because we've actually run the numbers. If you haven't done this, go out to moneyguy.com/resources and download this deliverable titled, How Much Should You Save? And it shows at different ages what savings rate would allow you to create some sort of future lifestyle. So if I save 10%, what does my retirement lifestyle look like? If I save 25%, what does it look like? And what we found is that the meaty part of the curve, where the distribution is, where most people are able to start saving and building, is at that 25% savings threshold. So the earlier you get there, the earlier you figure that out, the more flexibility you're going to give yourself later in life. And I would argue, Brian, our Abound Wealth clients have figured that out and recognized how powerful that can be.
Yeah, and I think that this is a great transition into, we've talked about net worth, we've talked about income, we've talked about education. Now I love that we're going to be pivoting and thinking about beyond even savings rates. How do these people actually spend their money? Because we know if you look at the average American consumption, and there's a whole marketplace trying to push people into consumerism at high levels. Let's see, what do our financial mutants, our clients in the wealth survey, what are they doing with car purchases, home purchases? Because these are some of the biggest things that go out the door on the expense category.
Well, not only are they, for most people, the most expensive things that you will ever buy, I think for a lot of Americans, they are the status symbol. The home that you live in or the car that you drive, for some reason, it's supposed to be this representation of how wealthy or successful you are. But when you actually look at the numbers, 81%, that's 8 out of 10 of new cars purchased in Q1 of 2025 were financed. Yep. So there are a lot of people that are borrowing money to get into the automobile. So again, we asked our clients, again, these are folks that have fulfilled the abundance cycle. They've reached a level of success that it made sense to take the relationship to the next level. And we asked them this question: on your last car purchase, how'd you pay for it? And 60% of our respondents said, okay, yep, on my last car, I wrote a check and I paid cash for it, which I thought was pretty exciting.
Well, that's always, cash is, we get a bad rap on this, is that a lot of people don't understand, just because we have a rule to help you finance cars, the preferred way to pay for cars, because they're depreciating assets, it's even hard to call them assets sometimes, is to pay cash.
That's right.
So it doesn't surprise me that our financial mutant wealth management clients are paying, the majority of them are paying cash, but also we have a no hypocrite policy.
That's right.
We know a lot of people, and I fell into this camp, is that when I graduated college, I was broke as a joke. I had a lot of opportunity in my eyes that I was going to try to change the world, but I didn't know how to do it. So the most important way that I could start my wealth building journey was to drive to my job. And I needed reliable transportation for that. So I actually had to finance my first car. And that's what led to 23.8. And not surprisingly, these same clients, who the majority of them are saying they pay cash now, when we then pivoted the question and said, hey, okay, we understand right now you're paying cash, but at the beginning of your journey, your first car, when you started working, did you pay cash or did you finance? And what do you know? 72% of them financed their first car.
That's 3 out of 4 folks who've now reached a level of financial success that they get to be part of this survey. So if you cannot pay cash for a car, that's okay. A lot of people have been in that same boat, but we still want you to do it responsibly. It's why, Brian, we came up with 23.8. When it's time for you to buy a car, whether you're buying new or whether you're buying used, if you cannot pay cash, make sure you follow 23.8. You put 20% down on the purchase. You pay it off in no more than 3 years or 36 months, and your total gross payments cannot exceed 8% of your monthly income. And then there are 2 caveats you have to keep in mind. Number 1, luxury cars don't count. If you're buying a luxury brand, if you're buying a BMW, a Mercedes, an Audi, something in that family, you have to pay it off in 1 year. 1 year, same as cash, pay it off. And number 2, you cannot let your car payment exceed the amount that you have going monthly to investments and savings. So if you have $1,000 car payment, you better make sure that you have more than $1,000 going into your investments for the future.
Don't you wish all those videos on TikTok and elsewhere that have all the people who are bragging about their $1,300 car payment, if they could, underneath it, you could see
how much am I saving?
Italicize what their savings rate is. That. It would be nice as an offset on that. But here's something, getting back to my financial mutants who are doing things right. I do think it's interesting if you're at least going to buy a depreciating asset, how do you offset that depreciation? As you just drive it until the wheels fall off. And what do you know? When you look at the stats, 84% of our Abound clients drive cars for more than 7 years.
What I think is wild is when you think about this contrast, 84% of Abound clients drive it for more than 7 years. 63% of average Americans right now drive a car for less than 5 years. What that means is that 63% of Americans would prefer to pay for depreciation and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. If you're changing out your car every 3, 4, 5 years, you are taking a huge hit in terms of how quickly that automobile depreciates, and you're literally flushing money down the toilet. So if you're going to buy a new car, you should buy it with the intent and the idea that I'm going to drive this for 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 years, so that the depreciation hit I take on the front end doesn't matter so much by the time I get to the end of the car's life.
So we've obviously seen there's a big contrast between what financial mutants do with vehicle purchases versus what the general public does. How about the only asset that seems to show up when the Federal Reserve does their annual wealth surveys, or every few years they do their wealth survey. I keep saying annual, but they do their wealth survey. It seems like all net worth for the typical American is tied up into one decision.
Yep.
The house that they purchase.
Right.
So what do our financial mutants do when it comes to housing?
Well, first, let's talk about what the median American does. We know that right now, the median U.S. home value is about $411,000. And so, again, our financial mutants are folks that have reached a level of financial success that it made sense for them to take their relationship to the next level. So we just asked, okay, what kind of homes do you guys live in? Is it lifestyles of the rich and famous? Is it these mansions, these amazing homes that you live in? And not surprisingly, we found that the median home value of our clients was about $650,000, with the average coming in just over $1 million. Again, that's skewed by some outliers on the high end, but you can see the vast majority, 70% of our clients have homes between $400,000 and $1.2 million. It's not multi-million-dollar homes that successful people are living in.
Well, I think there's even more to kind of look at this data and see. So yes, the houses are a little bit bigger than the median for the country, but it's not so much. You know, it's really like 50% more. But then when you compare and contrast that, remember the opening slide was the typical net worth of a survey respondent was 2.2 million, and then you find out that their house is 650,000. Do you realize that we're getting within a stone's throw of that house was only 25%
of it,
of their total net worth? Meanwhile, if you look at the average American, the only way that their net worth is actually increasing when you look at the Fed changes, the Federal Reserve changes, is by equity in their homes. So we already see a stark contrast, once again, that financial mutants understand that owning income-producing assets like your investments in your mutual funds, your ETFs, as well as, you know, other appreciating assets is more important than the house that you live in. There is something to be learned by that, because it's back to your army of dollar bills working harder than you can with your back, your brain, and your hands. Don't sleep on this. Yes, they live in nicer homes than the average American or the median of the American household, but it seems like they have more assets, much larger assets working for them in the background because they don't put too much value in the house that they live in.
But I can already imagine, Brian, the audience is saying something along these lines. Yeah, but that times were different right now. Homes are more expensive. Interest rates are higher. It's these people, they put 20% down on their home, and we can't do that. And I want to remind you that, again, we are looking at people who are at a certain stage of their financial journey. But some of the information we can glean is, okay, what did it look like earlier on? And so we asked our survey respondents this question: when you bought your very first home, how much did you put down? What was your total down payment? And it was remarkable that 78, almost 80% of our respondents put down less than 20% for their first home. So if you're someone who's trying to buy your first home and you want to get on that side of the home ownership equation, but you've thought, man, okay, well, I've got to put 20% down, and I got to do a 15-year mortgage, and I got to, it's okay. We want to give you grace, and we think that even when it comes to buying a home, there's a better way to do home buying.
Yeah, this is, once again, people, when they ask us, when they come do studio tours and so forth, they say, well, where did these rules come from? And I always it's the no hypocrite policy. I mean, I've been around enough successful people, and I've asked enough questions, and I've had my own journey. We've had our own journeys. And I ask all of our financial advisors, how do you use and look at money especially for house purchases? And it's always the case is that it's easy to tell people, hey, you should go put down 20% on a house. But when you actually talk to successful people, The majority don't do it.
It's not what they did.
So that's why we created rules to help you just know what is the actual reality, not what's in the brochure, not what sounds good to make you feel bad about yourself. And that's why if you haven't gone out to moneyguy.com/resources and looked at our home buying calculator, we're going to help you kind of know how to navigate this difficult decision, but come out on the other end of it as best as you possibly can so that your future self, your present self, everybody is well represented and you feel like you've lived your best financial life.
All right, Brian. So we're talking about the survey that we did of our Abound Wealth clients. We've talked about some of their behavior, like how do they save? And we've talked about some of their behavior in terms of like how do they spend? What do they consume? But now let's talk about their strategy. Did they understand? Did they recognize that when it comes to money, often there's a process that you can follow. There's some would say, a financial order of operations that you can follow through to make sure that your money is going where it's supposed to go. And so when we look at our clients, are they actually following the food? Do they recognize the values? And I thought it was really, really interesting. One of the things that is very, very clear to our clients is that they understand how scary and how dangerous high interest debt can be, but they also recognize that using debt is okay and it can be a tool.
Well, this is where it gets nuanced to be a financial mutant versus other systems that are out there, is because we all know financial mutants, and this is something I've known about myself. We're pretty disciplined individuals. So we're so disciplined, we say, hey, credit card use, that's A-okay. But credit card debt, no way. Because there's not a way in the world that me as a financial mutant, I'm going to pay a bank 20+% a year, or if you think on an annualized basis, I'm going to avoid that. And we asked our clients, hey, you've heard the financial mutant rules where you can use a credit card, but you just go treat it as a tool that it is. We're not going to let it run away and destroy our wealth building opportunities. And once again, financial mutants, we resemble this to the core, is because 97% of our clients are using credit cards.
Yep.
But guess what? 99. Now look, this same thing happened last year too, and I'm like, who is the 1% that's blowing this up? Why is this not 100%? So there is still room for improvement. But 99% of our clients understand that credit card debt is a no-go place.
Right.
You do not pay banks 20%. Meanwhile, you're hoping to make 8 to 11%. You're going to pay a bank, 20+%. That will never, ever, ever work in your financial journey. So, but I don't think if you're a disciplined individual, that means that you can't take advantage of some of the convenience as well as some of the benefits that happen that come along with credit card use.
So our financial mutants recognize that carrying high interest debt is not okay, but using credit cards is okay. So I'd say they put a check mark across step number 3 of the financial order of operations.
And the way they can do that is because they're also leaving enough margin in their financial life to have emergency reserves.
That's exactly right. And once they've completed step 3, they move on to step 4, and they recognize how valuable cash and liquidity can be. So we asked our clients, when it comes to your emergency fund, how much do you keep? And what was amazing is that 94% of our clients have a fully funded emergency fund. 40% said they have between 3 to 6 months. 24% said they have between 7 and 11 months. And then there was another 30% that they said they have even more than 1 year's worth of living expenses in liquid cash. Now, a lot of those might be early retirees, fire people, fine people, normal retirees. Only 6% said that they keep less than 3 months in cash. They recognize how devastating it can be if an unknown comes your way and you're unprepared for it.
So guys, you're starting to see that, look, maybe there is something to this financial order of operations. At this thing, we really have provided you the instruction manual on what to do with your next dollar. So if you have not checked this out, please go to moneyguy.com/resources, and you too can download your financial order of operations.
All right, Brian, we've talked about behavior, what they save. We've talked about behavior, what they've spent. We've talked about tactically, are they following the food? Now let's talk about who they are. Let's talk a little bit about their mindset and what comprises them. And so what we said is, okay, for financial mutants, one of the things that's so valuable is when it clicks, when you begin to understand how money works, you allow yourself to open up unlimited possibilities of capitalizing on the 3 ingredients of wealth creation, one of which is time. And so we asked this question, At what age did you begin thinking about money seriously? At what age did it click? At what age would you say that you began becoming a financial mutant? And what's wild is almost 60% of our respondents, 58%, said that they got serious about money before age 30, which is great. And I think that's awesome. 60% said in my 20s or earlier, I began to get serious about money, but that's only half the question.
Well, and think about it. You choose your hard. It is, I get it. In your 20s, it is hard to take a single dollar to put it to work because it seems like housing's expensive, cost of fuel is expensive, cars, life is just expensive.
Yep.
But I'm telling you, every dollar has a multiplier, an exponential benefit, and we'll talk more about that. But it is definitely something that is worth the sacrifice in your 20s. But if you're listening to this, because look, it's one thing to focus on the 20-somethings, but it's another to know that statistically, when we look at the typical American, they don't discover personal finance until their 30s.
That's right.
And so I thought it was interesting that if you even looking at our stats, there was 30% of our successful 7-figure clients that didn't discover personal finance. 30% of them were in their 30s. So this is, once again, there are opportunities, and we've even 7% that were under 45, and then going beyond that. You don't have to just give up. It just means that it's going to be a little bit harder on you if you did start later, but it doesn't mean that compounding growth can't work for you as well. And that's why one of the things we try to enable you is we try to give you, if you go to moneyguy.com, we give you tons of tools. If you go to our resource section on the power of compounding interest.
Yeah, it's amazing that if you begin to play with this tool, if you begin to look at what your money can do, it will be that motivating factor to cause you to change the way that you think about your financial decisions. We say this all the time. The absolute best time to figure out money was yesterday, which makes today the second best time. So no matter what age you are, no matter when you're stumbling across this content, if you can start today, you still have the opportunity to positively impact your financial future. So as we were asking our clients, our survey respondents, we said, okay, well, this is all great. This is all wonderful, but let's talk about how you got here, because it's easy. At the end, people always want to ask you, well, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? And I think what the world thinks is, okay, well, these people, they must have been born into it. Like if you're someone who's financially successful, if you're in the 2 comma club, you must have come from a family and you must have had some sort of inheritance. So we asked this question, when you think about your first million, how'd you get there? Like, was it because you had parents that left you money or because you received some inheritance? And what I think is amazing is if you look at our survey respondents, 76%, 3 out of 4 of our clients received no form of inheritance to be able to reach $1 million.
It is interesting is that, because I want to make sure we're clarifying this, is that 76% received less than $25,000.
I'm sorry, no form of meaningful inheritance.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because it's the thing. Look, 54% said absolutely nothing. I've received nothing. But always when I see stats, I'm like, well, wait a minute, there's probably more. You know, if you receive $10,000, is that what made you rich? Or is it 20? So that's why we put in the clarifier, because I wanted to know. Because, look, we're not the first to ask this question. When I got inspired in the 90s, when I read Millionaire Next Door, I remember Dr. Stanley and Dr. Danko posted that data that it was 80% of millionaires were first generation. And I know when the Ramsey organization has done their research, it's somewhere right under 80%, right in the high 70s. So it's just so affirming to me when I do our own survey of our millionaire clients, and you find out that once again, it is right there around that 80% figure. 76% received less than $25,000. I look at that. Now, look, let me tell you the negative, then I'll give you the positive. It's sad to me that it means that the cycle of wealth creation is that a generation will make it, that it will slowly evaporate back to regenerative zero within 2 generations. But if you're somebody who's out there and you're aspirational, this should put the fire within you, is that don't listen to the false narratives out there that you can't do it. We have an entire client base as well as ourselves. Both of us come from humble beginnings. And I just want you to know, you, with a little bit of discipline, a little bit of education, and just a lot of gumption that you're going to make your life better, you too can be a financial mutant and be that 7-figure person if you just will put what we're sharing. We're trying to improve every one of these stats with all the content we do. And that's probably a great segue, Bo, into mindset.
Yeah, I think it's great. What you just said is if you have the gumption, if you have the ability to tell yourself that, yes, I can impact my financial future, no matter where I come from, no matter what my background is, you're beginning to exercise the strongest muscle you have, and that's the one that's in your head, between your ears, your mindset that's allowing you to recognize what you can do. And so we asked our clients, okay, when you think about things generally, would you describe yourself as an optimist, someone who thinks that the glass is half full and things are going to improve, or the pessimist, the glass is half empty and things are not going to improve? And not surprisingly, when we look at our client base, when we look at the Abound Wealth family, 81%, 8 out of 10 of our clients would consider themselves optimists. They believe that the future is likely going to be better, things are likely going to work out, and that they have the ability to positively impact what their future looks like.
Yeah, and you compare and contrast that to the general population, and there's all kind of, it changes from year to year, but it's historically, the majority of the U.S. population would describe themselves as pessimists. Mm-hmm. And that makes me sad to see such a disconnect on worldviews and the fact that some see opportunity and others see lots of barriers. And I want to change that. I want you guys to know you can do this. You know, I think two guys coming from humble beginnings, working with an entire client base of people who also have come from humble beginnings and then come out the other side better. You too can do this. And that's why, look, we get so excited doing these millionaire surveys of our clients that it has expanded into where we're now offering this for our financial mutants. We want to know who you are, what has made you successful, because you can imagine this is going to create some outstanding content so that we can show the world how it's not only just the wealth management clients, it's also the people who come and watch and consume this content. How do you look at money? So I want to encourage you to go to moneyguy.com/survey. Help us out and do your survey as a financial mutant so we can see who you are and hopefully educate the world to make better decisions.
Or maybe you've been watching this episode and you thought, okay, man, my net worth looks very similar and my behaviors look very similar. And I've reached a point to where, man, I've been doing great, but I'm at the point now that I don't know what I don't know. And I want to make sure that I'm optimizing. I'm doing all the things that I should be doing so that I can get to my great, big, beautiful tomorrow as efficiently and effectively as possible. If that describes you, we would love the opportunity to talk with you. You can go to moneyguy.com/become-a-client. You can watch a little welcome video from me and Brian. We would love for you to fulfill the abundance cycle and consider taking the relationship to the next level.
Yeah, we love creating this type of content. I love opening up kind of the secrets to wealth, because we know money is a taboo subject, and I love that we get to dispel a lot of the falsehoods that are out there that I think really do restrict people from understanding just what they can accomplish if they'll just put their mind to it and let that behavior start influencing the discipline, the decisions, creating that margin, and then giving it, of course, enough time. You too can be a financial mutant that is part of the Abound Wealth family and changing the world in your own way. Guys, I'm your host, Brian Preston. Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy team, out.
The Money Guy Show is hosted by Brian Preston and Bo Hansen. Brian and Bo are partners with Abound Wealth Management. Abound Wealth Management is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission in accordance and compliance with the securities laws and regulations. Abound Wealth Management does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through The Money Guy Show. The information provided is for informational purposes only, may not be suitable for all investors, and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.